I'm staring at my best friend Celeste sitting across from my kitchen table, her hand resting protectively over her supposedly pregnant belly, while my husband Trevor nods along to every word she says like some kind of devoted puppy. The morning coffee in my mug has gone cold, but I can't seem to lift it to my lips because my hands won't stop shaking. Something about this whole situation feels wrong. Deeply, fundamentally wrong. But I can't put my finger on what exactly is making my stomach churn like this. Meredith, you have to understand, Celeste says, her voice taking on that sickeningly sweet tone she uses when she wants something. The baby needs stability. Trevor and I have been talking, and we both think it would be best if I moved in here permanently. You know, to help with the pregnancy and everything. She exchanges a look with my husband that makes my blood run cold. There's something in that glance, something intimate and conspiratorial that excludes me completely from my own marriage. Trevor clears his throat and won't meet my eyes. Celeste is right, Mur. She shouldn't be alone during such a delicate time, and since the baby is... He trails off, but the implication hangs in the air like smoke. Since the baby is his, since my husband got my best friend pregnant, since my 23-year marriage apparently means nothing compared to whatever this is, my chest feels tight, like someone's wrapping steel bands around my ribs and pulling them tighter with each breath. The kitchen that I've spent years perfecting, the sage green cabinets I painted myself, the herb garden visible through the window I tend every morning, suddenly feels foreign, like I'm an intruder in my own home. Celeste's belongings have been slowly creeping into our space over the past few weeks. Her expensive moisturizer on my bathroom counter, her designer handbags draped over my dining room chairs, her presence everywhere, pushing me out inch by inch. I need some air, I manage to say, pushing back from the table so quickly that my chair scrapes against the hardwood floor with a sound like fingernails on glass. I'm standing in my backyard, gripping the wooden fence so hard that splinters are digging into my palms when my phone buzzes. It's my sister Deanna calling from Phoenix, and I almost don't answer because I know the moment I hear her voice, I'm going to fall apart completely. But something in me needs to hear someone who's on my side right now. Meredith? You sound terrible. What's wrong? Deanna's voice cuts straight through my pretense before I even say hello. She's always been able to read me like that, even from 2,000 miles away. The words tumble out of me in a rush. About Celeste's pregnancy announcement 3 weeks ago. About Trevor's guilty confession that followed. About how they've been planning my displacement like I'm some inconvenient roommate instead of the woman who's shared this life with him since I was 25 years old. I tell her about the way Celeste touches her belly during conversations, always making sure I can see, and how Trevor jumps to fulfill her every request while barely acknowledging my presence anymore. Wait! Slow down! Deanna interrupts. Something about this whole thing stinks, Mare. Celeste is 47 years old. When's the last time she even dated anyone seriously? And suddenly, she's pregnant with your husband's baby? How convenient that this happens right after her divorce settlement dried up and she got evicted from that fancy apartment. Her words hit me like ice water. I hadn't connected those dots, but now that she said it, the timeline feels suspicious. Celeste's financial troubles started about 2 months ago when her ex-husband's alimony payments ended. She'd been staying in our guest room temporarily while she looked for a new place, but every week brought a new excuse for why she couldn't move out yet. Deanna, you don't think she would lie about something like this, do you? Even as I ask the question, memories start surfacing that I've been pushing aside. How Celeste only seems nauseous when Trevor's around. How she's been drinking wine at our dinner parties, claiming it's just a tiny sip for the baby. How she refused my offer to come with her to prenatal appointments, saying she preferred to go alone. Through the kitchen window, I can see Trevor and Celeste still sitting at my table, their heads bent together in intimate conversation. They look like conspirators planning a heist, and I'm starting to realize that maybe that's exactly what they are. The next morning, I'm supposed to be at my book club meeting, but instead I'm sitting in my car outside Dr. Hamilton's office, my heart hammering against my ribs like it's trying to escape. Deanna's words kept me awake most of the night, and by dawn I'd made a decision that terrifies and empowers me in equal measure. I need to know the truth, and I need to know it now. I'd called the office pretending to be Celeste, claiming I needed to reschedule my appointment because of morning sickness. The receptionist's confused pause stretched so long, I thought the line had gone dead. "I'm sorry, but we don't have any appointments scheduled for a Celeste Morrison. Are you perhaps thinking of a different practice?" The words hit me like a physical blow, but they also filled me with something I hadn't felt in weeks: clarity. Now I'm walking into that same office with my own appointment, scheduled under the pretense of discussing fertility options. Dr. Hamilton has been my gynecologist for 15 years, and when I explain my situation, carefully, without naming names, her expression grows increasingly troubled. "Meredith, if someone is claiming to be pregnant but hasn't been to any prenatal appointments, that's a serious red flag. At her age, regular monitoring would be absolutely essential. Any responsible pregnant woman would have had multiple visits by now, blood work, ultrasounds." She leans forward, her voice gentle but firm. "I think you need to trust your instincts here." Walking back to my car, I feel like I'm seeing the world through new eyes. The sky seems brighter, the air cleaner. For the first time in weeks, I'm not the victim in this story. I'm the detective, and I'm gathering evidence. My phone buzzes with a text from Trevor. "Celeste isn't feeling well. Can you pick up some prenatal vitamins on your way home?" The audacity of it makes me laugh. Actually laugh, right there in the parking lot. But my laughter dies when I remember something else. 3 months ago, when Trevor suggested we should consider refinancing the house, I'd insisted on checking our mortgage documents. What I found had surprised me then, but I'd forgotten about it until this moment. The house, our beautiful, carefully maintained home that Celeste wants to claim, is in my name only. My name. Not Trevor's. Not ours. Mine. I spend the rest of the afternoon at the county courthouse, pulling property records and making copies of everything. The clerk, a woman about my age with kind eyes, seems to sense my urgency and helps me navigate the system. When I see my name, Meredith Catherine Walsh, listed as the sole owner of our property, purchased 2 years before my marriage when I'd gotten a small inheritance from my grandmother, I feel something shift inside my chest. It's like a locked door finally opening. The house had been my sanctuary, my investment, my future security. When Trevor and I married, I'd never bothered to add his name to the deed because we were so young and so in love, and frankly, it had never seemed important. Over the years, as we'd renovated and improved the property together, I think we'd both started thinking of it as ours in every sense. But legally, technically, it's mine. Every single brick, every carefully chosen paint color, every flower in the garden, mine. By the time I pull into our driveway, it's nearly dinner time. Through the living room window, I can see Celeste stretched out on my sofa like she owns the place, one hand draped dramatically across her forehead, the other resting on her allegedly pregnant belly. Trevor is in the kitchen, and I can smell something cooking. Probably that pasta dish Celeste always requests, the one that takes hours to make properly. I sit in my car for a moment, just watching them through the glass. They look so comfortable, so settled into their new arrangement. Celeste says something to Trevor when he brings her a plate, and he laughs. Actually laughs, in a way he hasn't laughed with me in months. The intimacy of the moment hits me like a slap, but instead of the crushing pain I've been carrying, I feel something else entirely. Anger. Pure, clean, righteous anger that burns away the last of my self-doubt. My phone rings, and it's Deanna again. "Did you find out anything?" she asks without preamble. She's not pregnant, I say, surprised by how steady my voice sounds. No doctor visits, no prenatal care, nothing. And Deanna? The house is in my name. Only my name. The silence on the other end stretches for several seconds before Deanna lets out a low whistle. Oh, honey. They have no idea what's about to hit them, do they? No, I say, looking at my husband and my former best friend through the window, watching them play house with my life. They really don't. I walk into my own house like I'm entering a battlefield, but for the first time in weeks, I'm the one with the weapons. The manila folder tucked under my arm contains copies of the property deed, mortgage documents, and a printed email from Dr. Hamilton's office confirming no appointments for Celeste Morrison. My hands aren't shaking anymore. They're steady as rocks. Trevor looks up from the stove with that guilty expression he's been wearing like a mask lately. Hey, Mur. How was book club? The lie rolls off his tongue so easily, but I notice he can't quite meet my eyes when he says it. Celeste doesn't even bother to sit up from her dramatic pose on the sofa, just waves one manicured hand in my general direction like I'm the hired help. Book club was enlightening, I say, setting my purse down on the counter with deliberate precision. We discussed fiction versus reality. Very relevant topic, actually. I let that hang in the air for a moment while I pour myself a glass of water, taking my time, letting them wonder where this is heading. Celeste finally sits up, her hand automatically moving to her belly in that practiced gesture I now recognize as pure performance art. Meredith, you seem tense. The stress isn't good for anyone right now, especially with the baby coming. Her voice has that patronizing sweetness again, like she's speaking to a child who doesn't understand adult situations. You're absolutely right, Celeste. Stress isn't good for anyone. I open the manila folder and spread the documents across the kitchen island like I'm dealing cards. That's why I decided to do something about it today, starting with a visit to Dr. Hamilton's office. The color drains from Celeste's face so quickly, I think she might actually faint. Trevor drops the wooden spoon he's been holding, and it clatters against the floor with a sound that seems to echo through the sudden silence. I called to schedule your next prenatal appointment, I continue, my voice conversational, almost friendly. Imagine my surprise when they told me you've never been a patient there, or anywhere else, apparently. Funny thing about pregnancies, they usually require medical care. Celeste's mouth opens and closes like a fish gasping for air, but no words come out. Trevor takes a step toward me, his hands raised like he's approaching a dangerous animal. Meredith, let's just calm down and talk about this. Oh, we're going to talk, I say, tapping the property deed with one finger. We're going to talk about a lot of things. The silence stretches between us like a taut wire ready to snap. Celeste finally finds her voice, but it comes out as a strangled whisper. Meredith, I can explain. Can you? I interrupt, my voice sharper than I've ever heard it. Can you explain why you've been lying about being pregnant for 3 weeks? Can you explain why you've been manipulating my husband and trying to steal my life? I pick up the property deed and hold it up so they can both see it clearly. Or maybe you can explain why you thought you could kick me out of my own house. Trevor's face goes through a series of expressions. Confusion, realization, then something that looks almost like relief. Your house. Mur, what are you talking about? This is our house. No, Trevor, this is my house. My name on the deed, my mortgage, my inheritance that bought it, my house that I've been sharing with you out of love for 23 years. I slam the document down on the counter, and both of them jump. My house that your pregnant girlfriend thought she could just move into permanently. Celeste stands up abruptly, all pretense of weakness gone. The mask is finally slipping, and what I see underneath makes my skin crawl. There's a hardness in her eyes, a calculating coldness that I've never noticed before. You self-righteous little mouse, she hisses. Do you think Trevor actually wants to be married to someone like you? Someone so boring, so predictable, so completely forgettable? Her words should hurt, but instead they bounce off me like rain on glass. I've spent 3 weeks drowning in self-doubt, but now I see the truth clearly. This isn't about my marriage being broken. This is about two people who thought they could use me and discard me when it was convenient. You know what, Celeste? You're right about one thing. I have been predictable, predictably loyal, predictably trusting, predictably generous. I walk over to where she's standing and look her directly in the eyes. But you made one crucial mistake. You thought being predictable meant being weak. Trevor tries to step between us. Stop it, both of you. We can work this out. No, Trevor, we can't. I turn to face him, and I see him clearly for the first time in months. Not the man I married, but a stranger who was willing to betray everything we built together for whatever this twisted game is. Because tomorrow morning, I'm calling a locksmith. And by tomorrow evening, both of you will be out of my house. The look of shock on their faces is almost comical. They genuinely believed they held all the cards. Celeste's face contorts into something ugly and desperate. You can't just throw us out! I have rights! Trevor, tell her she can't do this! She whirls around to face him, but Trevor is staring at the property documents like they're written in a foreign language. The reality of his situation is finally sinking in. He's been living in his wife's house for over 2 decades, and now he's chosen to betray the woman who owns the roof over his head. Actually, I can do exactly this, I say, pulling out my phone. I've already spoken to a lawyer today. Since neither of you are on the lease or deed, you're considered guests. Guests who have overstayed their welcome. I start dialing a number I'd looked up earlier. Deanna recommended an excellent locksmith who does emergency calls. Wait, Meredith, please. Trevor's voice cracks, and for a moment he sounds like the man I married instead of the stranger he's become. We can talk about this. We can go to counseling, work things out. Work what out, Trevor? The fact that you believed your wife's best friend was carrying your child? The fact that you were planning to move her into our bedroom while I slept in the guest room? My voice rises with each word, 23 years of suppressed anger finally finding its voice. Or maybe we should work out how you never once questioned why a 47-year-old woman would refuse prenatal care. Celeste lunges toward me, her face twisted with rage. You vindictive little... But she stops short when she sees my phone screen. I'm not just calling a locksmith. I'm opening my contacts, scrolling through names of mutual friends, neighbors, Trevor's coworkers. I think everyone should know the truth, don't you? I say conversationally. Starting with your book club, Celeste. I'm sure Diane and Patricia would be fascinated to hear about your creative interpretation of pregnancy symptoms. My finger hovers over Diane's number. And Trevor's golf buddies at the country club. They'll get such a kick out of this story. The color drains from both their faces as they realize the social implications. In our small community, reputation is everything. Trevor's business depends on trust and respect. Celeste's entire social standing is built on the image she's carefully cultivated over the years. You wouldn't, Celeste breathes, but her voice lacks conviction. Try me, I say, and for the first time in months, I smile. It's not a nice smile. It's the smile of a woman who has finally stopped playing by rules that were designed to keep her small and silent and accommodating. The next morning arrives gray and drizzling, which feels perfectly appropriate for what I'm about to do. I'm dressed in my best navy suit, the one I wore to job interviews before I got promoted to regional manager at the insurance firm, and I feel like I'm suiting up for battle. The locksmith, a burly man named Pete, who clearly sees domestic drama on a regular basis, arrives at exactly 8 a.m. as promised. You sure about this, ma'am? He asks, glancing toward the house where Trevor and Celeste are presumably still sleeping in what they thought was going to be their love nest. Once I change these locks, anyone without a key is locked out for good. I've never been more sure of anything in my life, I tell him, and I mean it. I hand him a check and watch as he methodically removes the old locks from my front door, my back door, even the side entrance Trevor uses when he comes home from his evening runs. Each turn of Pete's drill feels like another chain falling away from my shoulders. By 10 a.m., I have 3 shiny new sets of keys, and Pete is loading his tools back into his van. That's when Trevor's car pulls into the driveway. He'd left early this morning for what he claimed was an emergency client meeting, but I saw Celeste slip out 20 minutes after him. They probably thought they were being clever, coordinating their schedules to present a united front when they returned. Trevor tries his key in the front door, and I watch through the living room window as confusion crosses his face when it doesn't work. He tries again, then walks around to the back door. Same result. By the time he's standing on the front porch pressing the doorbell, his face is flushed with anger and something that might be panic. I open the door, but don't step aside to let him in. "Good morning, Trevor. How was your client meeting?" "Meredith, what the hell is this? Why don't my keys work?" He's trying to push past me, but I'm standing firm in my own doorway. Because they're not your keys anymore. They never were, technically. I hold up one of the new keys, letting it catch the morning light. "I had the locks changed. I told you yesterday this would happen." Celeste appears behind him, slightly out of breath like she's been running. Her carefully styled hair is disheveled, and there are dark circles under her eyes that no amount of concealer can hide. "This is insane, Meredith! You can't lock us out of our home!" "My home," I correct her, "and I absolutely can." What happens next is almost beautiful in its poetic justice. Trevor starts demanding I let him in to get his clothes, his golf clubs, his precious vintage record collection. Celeste is alternating between fake tears and threats about calling the police. But I'm not budging from my doorway, and more importantly, I'm not alone anymore. Mrs. Chen from next door has come out to check her mailbox, but she's lingering on her front steps, clearly listening to every word. The Hendersons across the street are suddenly very interested in washing their car. Within minutes, I can see curtains twitching in windows up and down the block. Our little neighborhood drama is becoming the morning's entertainment. "Trevor," I say loudly enough for our growing audience to hear, "I've packed your essential items. They're in boxes on the front porch." I gesture to 3 cardboard boxes I'd filled at dawn with his basic clothes and toiletries. "Everything else can be arranged through lawyers." "This is harassment!" Celeste shrieks, her voice carrying across the quiet suburban street. "She's trying to destroy our lives." "Your lives?" I laugh, and it's a sound I barely recognize as my own. Confident, almost gleeful. "Celeste, you don't have a life to destroy. You've been living as a parasite, feeding off other people's generosity and hard work. First your ex-husband, then me, and now you thought you could manipulate Trevor into giving you a permanent meal ticket." Mrs. Chen has given up all pretense of checking mail and is now openly watching from her driveway. "Meredith," she calls out, her voice concerned but curious. "Is everything all right over there?" This is my moment. This is where I choose between protecting their reputations and protecting my own dignity. "Everything's fine, Mrs. Chen. Just dealing with some house guests who forgot they were supposed to leave." I raise my voice slightly. Apparently Celeste here thought she could fake a pregnancy to manipulate her way into a free place to live. The gasp from Mrs. Chen is audible, and I see her immediately pull out her phone. By this afternoon, every woman in our book club, bridge group, and neighborhood watch will know exactly what happened here. Celeste's face goes white as she realizes the social tsunami heading her way. Trevor grabs one of the boxes, his movements jerky with barely controlled rage. "This isn't over, Meredith." "Yes, it is," I say simply. "It's been over for a long time. I just finally stopped pretending otherwise. I step back and start to close the door, then pause. Oh, and Trevor? My lawyer will be in touch about the divorce papers. Don't worry, I'm feeling generous. You can keep your car. 6 months later, I'm sitting in my beautifully redecorated living room, sipping coffee from a new mug that reads, Queen of My Own Castle, a gift from Deanna during her recent visit. The morning sun streams through windows that I had professionally cleaned after I removed every trace of Celeste's presence from my home. The sage green walls I'd painted years ago look brighter somehow, like the house itself is breathing easier. The social fallout was swift and merciless. Within hours of our front yard confrontation, the story had spread through our community like wildfire. Celeste's book club expelled her unanimously. Trevor's business partner quietly bought out his share after 3 major clients canceled their contracts, citing trust issues. The country club revoked their memberships. In a town where reputation is currency, they were both bankrupt overnight. Trevor moved in with his brother 2 states away after our divorce was finalized. He tried to contest the house ownership, but my lawyer, a fierce woman named Patricia Kessler, who specializes in cases exactly like mine, shut that down quickly. He ended up with exactly what he'd contributed to our marriage financially: his car, his clothes, and half our savings account. Nothing more. Celeste simply vanished. Last I heard through Mrs. Chen's remarkably efficient gossip network, she'd moved back in with her elderly mother in Ohio. Apparently, even her mother had some choice words about the fake pregnancy scheme when she found out. There's something deeply satisfying about knowing that a woman who tried to steal my life is now sleeping in her childhood bedroom, probably sharing a bathroom with the parent she'd spent years trying to avoid. My phone buzzes with a text from Marcus, a divorced architect I met at a work conference last month. Still on for dinner tonight? I found that little Italian place you mentioned. I smile as I type back my response. At 55, I'm discovering what it feels like to date someone who actually listens when I talk, who asks about my day and remembers the details, who treats me like I'm interesting instead of convenient. The house feels different now. Not just because I've redecorated, but because it's truly mine in every sense. I wake up each morning without the weight of other people's deceptions pressing down on my chest. I make decisions based on what I want, not what will keep the peace. I've started painting again, something I gave up years ago when Trevor complained about the smell of acrylics. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd never found out the truth, if I'd just accepted their story and quietly moved into the guest room of my own house. The thought makes me shudder. I was so close to losing myself completely, to becoming a ghost haunting my own life. Now tell me, what would you do if you were in my place? Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and comment where you're watching from.